Hi, my name is Deb from DG Reads, and this is my furry werewolf Kylie, and we're here today to kick off a vlog for Spookopoly. Spookopoly is of course the fantastic readathon brought to us for all of October from Becca at Becca and the Books, and this is the spooky season twist to her Spookopoly TBR game, and it was so much fun participating last year. I decided last year I would just kind of roll as I went throughout the month, and that's what I'm doing again this year. I rolled my first 3 rolls in my TBR video if you haven't seen that yet, so I will be starting with those 3 books, but then as I finish any of the books in any order, I will go ahead and roll again. For this year, I saw some cute little dog toy dice on Amazon and I couldn't resist. So I don't know how accurate these are and well weighted these are, but we're going to give them a try when I need to roll for this board. For a really quick recap, I landed first on Leatherface, which is to read a family-based book, and for that I'm going to be reading Haven by Mia Dahlia. This is a gifted e-arc from CamCat Books. And then I got a community shelf space, and that I am using my Prompt Ball TBR game to give me prompts instead of physical cards. And the prompt that I got for that was horror, and I'm going to be reading Blood Covenant by Ellen Baxter. This is a Twisted Retreat edition, and it's also on my Horror Bingo Challenge TBR, so I'm excited to be knocking this one out. And then last but not least, I got a chance card, which is a collection of books you're excited to read and not necessarily in the mood to read right at this very moment. And for that, I got Incidents Around the House by Josh Malerman. And this is actually where I decided to start this morning. It is now October 1st, first day of Spookopoly, and instead of sleeping like I should have been at this hour, I wound up randomly waking up just in time for Becca's kickoff sprints to start. So I've been participating in that, reading Incidents Around the House, and I'm about 40% of the way in and figured I'd do my intro and start giving you my first update. So this one we are following from the POV of a little girl, and her parents and her live in this home, and also there's something called Other Mommy, and she and Other Mommy used to have kind of a friendship relationship, but Other Mommy's getting creepier and creepier and is asking to be let in to the little girl, and Other Mommy's also getting more ability to go further and further out. She's not confined to this girl's room anymore. She's going further and further afield. So it has some really good creepy elements. The audiobook for this one is narrated in the voice of a child. It was an interesting choice. I get the point of why they did it, but the child voice takes a little bit of the ambiance away from it, I think. So I may try switching over now that I'm a little more awake and I have coffee to the physical reading before I have to go to work. It's also a little on the repetitive side. This little girl is very frequently pretending to be asleep while her parents or one or the other of them is talking to her as like a way to just tell her what's going on in life and confessing things they would not say in front of a child if they knew she was awake. And that happens time and time again, and I know it's really the only way we can kind of see the bigger picture outside of this just little girl perspective, but I'm not sure that narrative choice is really 100% working for me. So anyway, I'm going to continue this before the sprint ends that we're in the middle of. Of course, I picked our shortest sprint, try to film things, but I will let you know once I finish this and I'm ready to roll something new. She's sleepy tonight, so she's getting treats and a new toy. You ready to look pretty for the camera? Sun's hitting a really weird spot, so apologies for that. But I have now finished Incidents Around the House. It has been a very long day. It's only like 5:30 in the evening, but I got up so early this morning and then I was at work for a bit, had to pick up my dad who was having a procedure done and needed a ride home, and I'm just tired. So that's the downside. I don't know how much reading's gonna get done this evening. But on the plus side, me being up so early means I got a lot of reading done with this, and I didn't didn't love the audio, so I kind of held the ending of it for physical reading when I got home this evening and have flown through the final 25% or so of this book. It lost my attention a little bit in a few places, but overall I had a good time with this one. I think it does dark and creepy pretty well. I think it didn't quite go as far as maybe I was expecting it to in terms of being scary, but I think it did have its good moments. I think the unsettledness of it worked for me. So overall, I think this one's going to wind up at a 4-star, but it also means that I get to roll a new roll. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, we finished up last time on chance, so let's go ahead and roll the squeaky dice and see what we get next. We got a 7. Which is Shirley Jackson. Okay, so as you saw, I landed on Shirley Jackson, and there's 2 options for this one. I can read a Shirley Jackson book, which is tempting since one of my buddy reads for this month is actually a Shirley Jackson book. But the other option is to pick a book with a building on the cover, and I think I'm gonna go that route because I don't really want to read my buddy read book at the extreme beginning of the month when the chat will be at the very end of the month. So I think I know what I'm doing for this one. I think for this I'm going to be going with In the Lonely Hours by Shannon Morgan. This is a book that I received from Once Upon a Book Club box, which is a subscription, if you're not familiar with it, where they send out books each month that come with gifts, and as you're reading you get to find QR codes on occasion, but mostly you get these little post-its telling you to open a gift, and you get to open a gift when you get to that point. It makes extra motivation for reading, and it's introduced me to a few books that I might not have picked up otherwise. They don't usually or as often have special editions, but in this case obviously they did. And other than that, I don't know much about this one other than it does have a castle on the cover, and it says it's a modern ghost story, and the inhabitants of a centuries-old castle perched on a remote island in northwest Scotland must confront its tragic and terrifying history. So it seems perfect for the season. I'm excited to give this one a go, and it's not super long, and I think I can get the audiobook pretty easily from my library as well. So this is next up, and I'll be back once I've started one of my Spookopoly-thon books. Okay, I'm back because I have some updates for you on Spookopoly, and I started Haven by Mia Dahlia last night, and I was kindly gifted an e-arc for this one from Camcat Books, and I made it to 32%, and I'm just calling it. This book isn't a good fit for me. It's following a family, and they're going on vacation to a big fancy home that's been passed down from some sort of relative, and they're going to have this family time for a month there. From the synopsis, we know that something about this house winds up kind of chipping away at their relationships, at themselves, and I went into it kind of expecting that we would have kind of a close-knit family. The house would kind of drive wedges between them, but honestly, none of them like each other. The parents don't like the kids don't like the parents, the husband and wife don't like each other, and we're switching POV between all 4 of them, the husband, wife, son, and daughter. There's also a lot of talk about body image and weight from almost all of the POVs. The son is very overweight, calls himself fat. He talks about he kind of likes it because it doesn't mean he has to starve himself like his sister and his mother, or binge and purge like his sister. He talks about his dad has weight issues also, how his mom's obsessed with exercise to stay thin, and it just is a lot. The kind of spooky elements I was looking for haven't really kicked in at this point, so it just wasn't a good fit for me, and I'm just gonna move on because I have a lot of stuff I'm really excited for this month, and that's what I need to do. So let's go ahead and roll. Okay, so we're starting on Shirley Jackson, and let's see what's next. A 2. And even though it rolled away, it was a 4. So 6. And I got Seance. So as you saw, I landed on the Seance spot, and that one means that I'm to commune with the spirits and use a random letter generator, and I'll need to use that letter as the first letter in the book that I choose to read. Okay, so I'm bringing up a random letter wheel, and let's see what it has to give us. Ready, set, and spin. M. I got an M, so I don't know what this is going to be yet. I will be right back. Okay, it took me way too long to realize I already had a perfect book on my TBR. I should have looked at my TBR first, but not always that smart. So what I have is Memorials by Richard Chizmar, and this one is an ARC that I received from Gallery Books, and it comes out on October 22nd, so I was needing to get to it pretty soon anyway, and this gives me the perfect excuse to get it officially onto one of my game boards. And this one says it's set in 1983, 3 students from a small college embark on a week-long road trip to film a documentary on roadside memorials for class. It starts as a fun adventure with long stretches of empty road, but as they venture deeper into the Appalachian backwoods, the atmosphere begins to darken as numerous memorials feature a strange, unsettling symbol hinting at a sinister secret. Were these roadside deaths really random accidents, or is something terrifying at work here? So this is an author I have not read before, but one I've been wanting to, so this gives me a good excuse. It's not small, and it's only in print, so it'll take me a little bit to get through it, but that's okay. I will be back once I have thoughts with this one. And while I'm here, I might as well also give you a little update. I've started In the Lonely Hours, and I am so far actually liking this more than I expected to. In the present day, or relatively present day, we're following a mother and daughter, and the mother has just learned that relatives have left her a castle, and that is a surprise to her because she was given up for adoption and knows nothing about her birth parents. So this comes out of the blue, but she and her teenage daughter go to visit the castle, and there are ghosts, there are things outside, there's things inside, and they're in a position of, at the moment, believing these ghosts seem to be perfectly fine, they're not hurting anyone, but they also know the history of this castle seems to have a lot of people having big dreams for it and then fleeing, so they don't know. We're also getting kind of some breakout or flashback chapters in italics that are set in the 1960s. I'm assuming this is going to wind up tying into who our main character Edwina's parents are, and that we're going to get some more backstory. We've got a lot of atmosphere in here. It's set on the locks in Scotland. I definitely have more interest in the present day stuff than the past stuff, and that's just me being me, but I'm actually enjoying both. I think the writing's been good so far. I'm only probably about a third of the way through, but I just started it this afternoon and I put on the audiobook, and it's been a good time so far. So this is looking like a surprise potential win. We'll see if it keeps up that way, but I'll let you know when I have more updates for you. Okay, I just wanted to have a really quick chatty update before my training starts this morning. I'm now about 70% into In the Lonely Hours, and there was something I wanted to highlight with this one just as a warning, and I didn't think I'd forget about it at the end, but figured I would give an update now. Now that I'm 70% in, we're getting a lot more of both present and the past timelines, and something to note is that one of the characters in the past timeline, who is impacting the present timeline as well, is a disabled man, and in the present they're calling him autistic, which is probably accurate. That's a very broad spectrum to cover it, but in the past it's said that he has the intellect and the mind of a child, but the strength and the body of a man. And that's coming from the nicest perspective, which is our main POV, thankfully. The grandmother, who is the grandmother both to our main character in that timeline and to this man, is not a nice woman. And she's not a nice woman to anyone. And she calls him really horrible things. He is put through really horrible medical procedures trying to cure him of this, and it is painful to read about. I think it's probably not inaccurate. I know it's not inaccurate to how people with disabilities and mental illnesses and things like that have been treated in the past, but I did want to highlight that as a trigger warning because it's very cruel what is happening to this poor boy. And I don't necessarily have the ability to speak to how the author's handling it. I think there's enough of the other characters, the better characters, challenging things and saying this isn't right, and present time characters saying that what was done in the past was wrong. I feel comfortable that it's not glorifying the way he was treated in any way, shape, or form, but it is at times difficult to read about. Grandmother also has a grandson who appears to be in a relationship with another boy, and that also is treated very badly. And again, it's coming from a character who we know to be really bad, so it's not that all the characters feel this way. Our main POV character loves her cousins, so I just wanted to highlight those things because they are definitely triggers for this particular book, and at times, you know, it makes me not want to just sit and binge read it, so I've been kind of spacing this one out just a little bit, but that's okay because I've got plenty to be reading. I am still really enjoying the atmosphere, the haunted castle of it all, the way the ghosts are kind of informing present that were part of the storyline in the past, and that part of it, I'm really enjoying it. So I am glad that I'm reading it, glad to be picking up a book that I wouldn't have gotten to probably in a hurry otherwise. So I will keep going on with this one and provide you with an update once I finish and I'm ready for a new roll. Happy Saturday. I had a really good reading day yesterday. I had training all morning, which was not so fun, but then I took the afternoon off, and since my workday started at 7:45 in the morning, I got off early and got a lot of good reading in. So a couple quick updates and then we get to do a roll. But I've started Blood Covenant. I haven't made it too far into it, but it starts chapter 1 in the middle of the action. These people are robbing a bank, and already when chapter 1 opens, it's bloody. It's very bloody. It's very messy. Things have not gone according to plan, and all I can say so far is this is in fact truth in advertising with all the blood on the cover. But my main update, and the reason I get to do another roll, is I did finish In the Lonely Hours, and I don't feel like I've done a great job describing what the plot of this is. I know I haven't. There is a whole mystery element in the historical timeline. Someone has stolen a valuable gem from the grandmother, the lady, the bad person that I kind of kept forgetting almost was an element because I got so caught up in the other things going on in here. But that was more a me thing than a book thing, I think. And the fact that I didn't care about this woman and how mean and evil she was, that I wasn't quite as invested in her lost thing that she really, really wanted. But that mystery element does carry through to the present day, and I really liked how the past and present really tied together, how the ghost kind of bridged that gap in a way. I think that it did a good job in the end of denouncing all the things that happened in the past to the disabled character, to the queer character. I think it was horrible to read about, but the characters who were good and the present day characters all know it was horrible and wrong and all of those things. So I think it handled that well. I really enjoyed the writing. I really enjoyed the narrative voice in here, and all told, I'm glad that I picked this one up. It's certainly not one I would have without Once Upon a Book Club box, so I'm glad to have received it with them. I do, by the way, I don't think I mentioned it earlier, have a discount code if you would be interested in this subscription. It is DGReads10, and it just gets you a discount on your first purchase. They do subscriptions. They also do one-time boxes. Like right now they've got Halloween related boxes up, and they've got a bunch of holiday boxes coming as well. So that's that. Let's get to the roll. That was a 3 and a 5. A book under 300 pages. Okay, you saw I got small book, doing myself a favor with that one, and I'm going to be truly embracing the small part of that with Crypt of the Moonspider by Nathan Balagrud. And this is a book that I received in my Nightworm subscription. It's also a book I got gifted by the publisher, which is Tor Nightfire, and therefore I have 2 copies. I need to read one of them, and I really want to, so it works out. This is set in the past. It is 1923, and Veronica is touching down on the moon for her intake Lake at Barrowfield Home for Treatment of the Melancholy. A renowned facility, its treatments have been lauded by many. All it takes is a little spider silk in the amygdala, maybe a strand or two in the prefrontal cortex, and perhaps an inch in the hippocampus to expunge all those troublesome thoughts and ideas. Apparently there's a giant spider under the moon, or there was, or there still is. I'm not sure, but it sounds creepy. It's historical, but in an alternate history, fantasy horror kind of direction, so I think it's not going to be an issue. It's also super, super short, so I should be able to finish this quickly and come back for another roll. So excited for this one. I'll be back soon. Okay, let's see how this goes. Kylie really, really, really wants to play with her snake toy, which is starting to finally look a bit rough, but it's also very loud, and even though she's adorable, I don't want to give in right now. So maybe if I hide the toy. Nope, that didn't work. She's got it again. Okay, let's see if we can get an update. Trying a different spot for an update. Just got a new little shelf system here. I'm trying to add a little bit of storage into what I have as a living room that had a lot of empty space in it. So figured might as well, since I put the effort of putting it together yesterday in, I might as well use it as a backdrop. And I am here to provide some updates, Spookopoly. And first off, I finished Blood Covenant and I generally enjoyed this. It was pretty much a 24-hour read for me, and given that it didn't have any audiobook, that actually is saying quite a bit. And I think it's a good mix of supernatural with human horrors, and it definitely was bloody, it definitely was gory, it definitely had high stakes. Not everyone's making it out of this whole situation alive, and I think it did that well. This family, particularly the grandfather and the grandson and the late grandmother, have the ability to see ghosts, so that was something I did not expect out of this, so that was interesting. I also didn't realize this was set in Australia, so that was also a pleasant surprise. Just a bit of a different setting. I think it did well kind of looking at grief and loss, and also things like supernatural curses and family lore and secrets. There were some things at the end that I still had questions about, and there were places where the writing was a bit rough. There were some typos even. It's an indie published type book, so that doesn't 100% surprise me, but this is winding up kind of at the 3.5 to 4. High 3.5 or a low 4. So overall, good time. And with that, I wanted to go ahead and roll again. Okay, next Spookopoly roll. I think I'm going to try one at a time. See if they maybe will stay. Okay, that's a 1. You still can't see it, but that's what it is. And a 3. We've got another chance card. And we got a chance spot, so that means I do need to spin my spinner wheel of books. I have read a couple off here, so let's hopefully not land on those. There's enough options on here, it should not be an issue. And spin. Actually did read that one. So second try. Parasite by Darcy Coates. I actually just was talking about this one the other day, saying I wanted to read it, so not mad to be getting this one, except I don't own it. So I will either have to wait for the library to come through or pick up a copy, either of which I am willing to do, but let's go ahead and do one more roll. Also, since the other book that I'm working on next for Spookopoly is super short, so let's do a second roll. Okay. One more while I wait for that from the library. 4 and a 6, so 10 total. a community shelf. Apparently, I'm just getting all the card spaces that aren't cards. Maybe the game's punishing me for not actually creating physical cards, but we're going to Prompt Ball once again to get a new prompt. Okay, we got community shelf, which means I need a prompt, so let's grab one. Another really general one. Time we've got fantasy. Okay, so Prompt Ball gave me another easy one, and it was just for a genre fantasy. And I had lots of options for this, but I wanted to go with something kind of spooky season fantasy. And what I've decided to go for is Immortal Dark by Tejas Gurma. Probably saying that wrong. But this is one that I've been hearing a lot of people liking. It's fantasy, it's vampires, it's dark, and I think there's romance to it. I don't know too much about it, but a lot of people have been giving kind of rave reviews, and there's a buddy read happening for it as part of Cassidy from Covers with Cassidy's Patreon. So I am eager to kind of be able to join in and be able to click on all the spoiler comments people have been leaving about it. This one says it's the Cruel Prince meets Ninth House in this dangerously romantic dark academia fantasy where a lost heiress must infiltrate an arcane society and live with the vampires she suspects killed her family and kidnapped her sister. So I'm excited for this one. I wasn't a huge Cruel Prince fan. I liked it. I didn't love it, but Ninth House I really, really loved. So excited for this one. And then I realized I didn't actually say anything about what Parasite by Darcy Coates is, and it is space horror from what I understand. The synopsis says they're closer than you think. A guard discovers an unusual life form on her remote moon outpost. She disregards protocol to investigate it with catastrophic results. Goes from there, but I tend to like to go in fairly uninformed. So this is one I've been wanting to get to. I really tend to like space horror, and I love Darcy Coates. So the two combined seem like they could work out really well for me. Hopefully I will pick that one up very quickly. That should give me some really good reading to get to, and I'll be back once I have some more thoughts. I'm just popping in with a really quick update because I've now read Crypt of the Moon Spider. This is only 85 pages. Did not take me long, although it took me a little bit longer than I should have taken to get through it. But overall, I liked this one. It had really good atmosphere. The whole moon setting worked really well for me. The whole Home for Melancholia and the discussions that were had between a couple of the patients there, I think set the tone really well. The use of the spider web as a tool for healing mental health, but not exactly in a straightforward way, was really interesting. The web going into people's minds and leaving scars on their heads where their heads have been opened essentially was just creepy in and of itself. But then it really winds up with some kind of fever dream sort of blending of ideas and memories, and it's hard to wrap my head around what even this book did, but I liked it. I don't know where this is heading. This says it is the first novella in a trilogy of novellas, I believe, that are all going to be tied to this moon, and I'm very curious. On this moon, there's a forest. It's covered in webs, but as far as I know, all the spiders on the moon have died off, and there's a sect of people, I would call them cult of people even, who have dedicated their lives to these spiders and to taking care of them and have kind of evolved in a way, I would say. I don't know. It was weird. It was interesting. It wasn't exactly 5-star feels for me, but it was a solid 4, a very easy read, one I would recommend if you like weirdness. And I don't know. It was just an interesting time, and I'm glad that I picked it up. I turn the camera on and suddenly Puppy wants to come hang out. Say hi. Say hello, Puppy. Aw, I just got home from work, so she wants to snuggle, but she wants to do it on her schedule. Yeah, that's what's happening, right? Yep, let me talk, okay? Anyway, my point in turning the camera on to begin with was that I have now made it to the halfway point in Immortal Dark, and I'm having mixed feelings about this one. I like so many things about it. So many is probably an over-exaggeration description there. There's a lot of buzzwords for this one that I should be really enjoying it. The school setting, the dark academia feel to it, the gothic feel to it. Those things are things that I am enjoying about it and should be having me feel a little bit more hooked in, I feel like, which isn't to say that I'm disliking it. It's just there's something about this book that makes my mind want to wander. I am listening to it, or I have been listening to it on audio, and I'm wondering if maybe this is one where I need to have the physical book in front of me to fully absorb it. And this is coming from someone who does a lot of audiobook listening. So it's not that I generally struggle with audio. There's just something about this one that my mind kind of veers off course and I wind up having to rewind and re-listen to things because I've missed something. I am enjoying the story as it's going along. I'm liking some of the dark elements to it. I'm liking our main character, although she's very young, very impetuous at times. So there are times where she frustrates me a little bit as well, but I kind of get where she's coming from. She is missing her sister. Her sister is from one of these human families, just like she is, that vampires are able to feed off of. And she and her sister have been raised kind of removed from this whole family system. Their mother, I think it was, took them away from that, but her sister is now missing and she's under the impression that the vampires took her and killed her. So she's now been invited in to this school, to this whole process, and she takes them up on it even though she's afraid of vampires and she doesn't really want to be involved. She's going in because she wants answers. She wants to know what happened to her sister. And so that part of it is working fairly well for me. There's just something about it that's not fully drawing me in. So I think what I'm gonna do, I just got the ebook from the library, so I'm gonna try moving on to doing some physical reading along with the audio maybe, and take it in that direction and see if that helps. But what that means is currently I have 3 books on my Spookopoly TBR that I'm working on, and all of them are going to be physical reads. None of them are purely things I can just listen to with audio. So I'm going to go ahead and do one more roll and hope whatever prompt I get will lead me to something I can kind of audiobook with at work tomorrow. So that's the objective. Let's see what we get. I'm going to flip you around so we can do another roll. 3 and a 6, so a 9. And we started on Community Shelf. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9. Bram Stoker. So something vampire-y is my recollection of what I need for that. And that's 8. Fort Stabby. Okay, you might have noticed I rolled twice there. Bear with me. First roll took me to Bram Stoker, and that one I needed a book related to vampires. The reason I didn't stop with this roll is that both Immortal Dark has vampires, and something else I'm reading for a different vlog also has vampires in it. I'm kind of worried about taking on a 3rd vampire book all at the same time, but anyway, I did still pick a book, and that is going to be Thirst by Marina Yurchuk. I am 100% sure that's wrong, but I'll figure it out. It is translated by Heather Cleary. This one is a vampire story. It says, across 2 different time periods, 2 women, 1 vampire, 1 mortal, confront a yearning that will not let them rest. As a breakout genre-blurring novel, we're following 2 different women. In 19th century, a vampire arrives from Europe to the coast of Buenos Aires. Present day, we're following a woman who is dealing with her mother's terminal illness, and she meets a vampire in a graveyard and things ensue. I'm not sure this one's going to be for me, quite frankly, but I received it in a Nightworm subscription, and they have sent me some books I've really enjoyed that I didn't know anything about going into it. So I do want to give this one a try, and it is one that I didn't get to when I did a vampire vlog a little while back, so it's a good one to pick up for this prompt. So I'm going to give it a try. And then I rolled again just because, again, I might want an audio audiobook that's not about vampires. So I got stabby. And one of the things you can interpret as a stabby book would be a thriller, something where people are dying, basically. And what I have for that is The Woman Who Lied by Claire Douglas. I received a gifted copy of this one from Harper. It's a recent release. I believe it's already out. And all I know is it's kind of a bookish book in the sense that there is an author who writes a successful, it sounds like, detective series, and then something in her real life starts to kind of mimic what happens in her book. Somebody has died. I think that makes it stabby. We've got blood on the cover. Also feels kind of stabby. So I think this is what I have, and I am at the very top of my waiting list from the library for the audiobook on this one. So hopefully I will be able to get that in very, very soon and read this one for stabby. Now, that gives me 5 books to be working on. Need to get moving, and I'll be back once I have some updates. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and give you a few updates for Spookopoly. First off, I started Thirst and made it about halfway into it, and I was listening to the audiobook during the Spookopoly sprints that Becca held last week, and just wasn't pulling me in, which is kind of what I expected. It's very much focused a lot of the time on sex. There's a lot of sex on page, and that's fine if that's what you're looking for, but that's not what I want in my horror type books. We weren't getting a lot of the horror elements to it, and I decided at the halfway point there was a doubles rolled, meaning I had to change books, and I decided that was just the sign to put it down. So this was a DNF. And then I also went ahead and finished Immortal Dark, and I switched today to reading physically on my Kindle in addition to listening to the audiobook, and that helped with my focus a little bit, but it's still not a book that really pulled me in. I really liked some of the lore elements to this world, to the take on vampires and how it related to the houses and the families, but there just wasn't anything that really hooked me. I wanted the relationship between kind of the male and female to have more chemistry for me, or more banter, or kind of everything that might have pulled me in was just not quite there for me personally. I know a lot of people have been loving this. I've also seen some really negative reviews also. So unfortunately, I kind of fell on the more negative side. I think it was more me and my tastes and enjoyment just in general drawing it down for me. I think the atmosphere and the setting had some good elements to it. So I wound up giving this one kind of a low 3, kind of verging on a 2.5, but probably a 3 at least for Goodreads if nothing else, and was happy to be done with it. I think it was a little bit longer than it felt like it really needed to be also. So with that, I really am looking for a win. So I started The Woman Who Lied, which is my stabby book, and I flew through the first about 55% of this today. So to start with, we're following Amelia, and she is at the start of the book on a bus. She's coming back from a meeting with her agent, and she has written a very successful line of detective or crime fiction books, and she's now drafted book number 10, and she wants to kill off the main character for this series in this book. It's risky. She wants something new. She wants to go a different direction, but her agent's going to consider it and read the draft and see what happens. She's stuck on this bus, it's in traffic, and then they find out that there's something going on and they're going to have to get off the bus and just walk the rest of the way, basically. And later that night, she finds out it was a bomb threat and it was a hoax, but something about it feels really familiar to her, and it's practically word for word everything written in her first book. The scene just really strikes home, and it seems like a really wacky coincidence, and she's kind of put off by that a little bit, or weirded out by that a little bit, and she's a little bit weirded out by this. Kylie's having her post-dinner craziness behind you, so apologies for that, but she's willing to chalk it up to coincidence until things keep happening from her different books. And it's very strange because her main character in that first book was on a bus that had to be disembarked when this hoax went on, and there's weird things that seem like they couldn't just happen coincidentally, but also how would you plan to have this happen at the exact time she was going to be on a bus, and other things like that keep happening. So it's really interesting the way it goes. We've also got these kind of cutout chapters that are like a crime scene novel. I don't know if it's her writing or maybe the standalone she's going to be writing. I don't know where the author's going with it, but I just hit the end of part 1, and something has happened that has me intrigued. So this is going much better, thankfully. I think maybe I just needed a stabby thriller kind of a read. I haven't really gotten to much thriller reading this month yet, so seems like this was a good choice. So with that, I am gonna go ahead and roll one or two more. The reason being that this one I will finish very quickly. I think I'm past the halfway point. And then for purposes of a different readathon, I want to hold Parasite that I'm going to be reading for next weekend. And then the third book I currently have picked for Spookopoly, I get the audiobook next week, and I kind of want to have that in hand. So I'm going to be out of books really soon in terms of what I can continue reading this weekend. So let's go ahead and roll. Okay, we have a bit of a backdrop change. I was working on a Kylie picture for Bookstagram earlier, and I can't be bothered to bring back out the other stuff. So first dice gives us a 2. Second dice gives us 3. 5 total, and that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Highest rated on my TBR. That could be scary. So we're definitely doing a second one. Let's see what else we get. 4 and a 1. So another 5. And a TBR vet. Alright, I have to figure out what those are going to be, and I'll be back. Okay, you saw my rolls. That whole highest rated one is always scary. And I kind of expected that I knew what it was going to be. And I did kind of think I was going to read this month. I just thought it would be on a Becca-Rec square, not on highest rated. So if I land on Becca-Rec now, I'm not sure what I'll do. But what I have picked out for highest rated was far and above anything else on my owned shelf. And that is going to be Lightbringer by Pierce Brown, which is of course the most recent installment in the Red Rising series. I'm excited for this one. I am a little scared to be tackling it in a month where I'm kind of wanting to read things quickly, but hopefully I can get the audiobook fairly soon for this one. I really love the audio for this series, so that will help me through these quite a bit as well. I specifically looked at my owned shelf, even though I think this at 4.75 would far surpass any shelf I look at on Goodreads, but I need more books for my owned October bingo board, and this one would actually work for a couple different squares. I think I'm going to use it for author I love on that board because I have been loving this series, and therefore Pierce Brown as well. So that's for this one. And then the second thing I rolled was for a TBR vet, and again I went to my Goodreads owned unread shelf and I sorted it by date I added it to my owned unread shelf, and for that I'm going to be reading A Blizzard of Polar Bears by Alice Henderson. This is the sequel to A Solitude of Wolverines, and therefore it is a second in a series that I've already started, which is one of the bingo prompts, and it's one that's been on my shelf since 2021, I think is what it said. I enjoyed the first one. They are kind of nature-based thrillers, I would say. We're following Alex Carter in the series, who is a wildlife biologist, and in this particular case, they are fighting for endangered species in the Canadian Arctic. She's studying a threatened population of polar bears with a small team of Arctic researchers, and in the midst of her studies, things start going wrong. The helicopter pilot quits unexpectedly. There are break-ins, there are people stealing things, and she's got to get to the bottom of it, I'm assuming. So this one's definitely easy for me to get on audio as well from the library, and it's shorter. So hopefully between these two books I'll have a good mix of something that'll take me a little bit longer, but I know I'm gonna love, and also this one, which I'm hoping will be very quick and entertaining. So I'll be back once I have more thoughts for you, and I'll leave you for now. I was filming some things, so I figured it was a good time to pop in just to do a final thoughts for The Woman Who Lied. And overall, I had a pretty good time with this one. I think it did a good job of kind of throwing some twists and turns that I didn't expect. It played with the reader a little bit in a way that when it was revealed, I could see, well, yeah, I made some assumptions. And I like that about it, that it didn't come completely out of left field with anything, but at the same time, the reader is surprised, or in my case I was anyway, by some things that happened, and the idea of the storytelling in this and the background background to those stories and how those get used against this author, I think was really well done and really interesting. It didn't completely wow me. It's not a 5-star read for me, but it was a solid 4-star. So this was a success. I have enough books that I'm currently working on. I have started Lightbringer and I am enjoying it. I'm about 10% of the way through that one, but it is 700 pages, I want to say. And then I do have 3 other books to still get to, so I'm not going to roll anything new at this point, but I'm going to keep reading. I'm having a lot of fun and I'm excited to get through at least 1 or 2 more things so I can roll some more. I'm here to give an update, but this little one saw the box that I carried upstairs with me, so I think we need to do an unboxing for her first. Because in going with the theme of Spookopoly, we got the Halloween month of BarkBox to open. She wants to see what's inside. She's a little excited. It is Lick or Treat. We've got a gummy worm and Skelly Beans. And last but not least, Crypt Cats. I don't know if you can see, but inside there are actually Kit Kat cats, which is really fantastic because when I did my Creepy Cats vlog, I did joke about Kit Kats being a cat-themed food, so this is pretty perfect. Ready? Okay, chaos is going to be ensuing, but I do also have a reading update for you. I am making good progress with Lightbringer and really having a fantastic time with it, so that is going well. The politics are politicking and I really am enjoying being with these characters even though they are suffering and going through it, and I don't feel like I can say a whole lot with this series. Even mentioning a character name will kind of spoil the fact that they've survived this long, which in a Pierce Brown novel is not to be assumed. So I'm gonna keep that one pretty vague. But I am also now reading Memorials by Richard Chizmar and having a good time with this one also. So we're following 3 main characters and they are off on a class project to drive through the back roads of Appalachia to find roadside crosses and memorials and film them, tell the stories behind them. And this is a project for an American Studies class, and they are kind of living out of a van with a tent and making their way along. One of these students lost his parents in an accident, and their memorial is one of the ones that they are going to be filming and looking at and talking about. But along the way, they're also just finding random ones on the side of the road, trying to find ones that tell a story basically, and they're doing videos, they're taking pictures, they're recording themselves talking about it, and all of this together is going to create this project. The book does have mixed media. It opens up with the project proposal that the students have written, and we do also get video footage in there as well. I don't know how well that's going to show up, but there's transcripts from the videos, and then it's broken up by days. This is really only like a week of travel for them, so it's not taking place, I don't think, unless things really go awry with the timeline, over a big period of time. The story starts off basically as a road trip novel and them taking turns driving, talking amongst themselves, and as they go, they get some attention as they're recording these memorials. People are beginning to question them, but they're talking to people in general. It seems to be going well, but then they're getting further and further into Appalachia and the reactions maybe aren't as positive and things are starting to happen to them. They don't know what's going on. They're kind of laughing a lot of it off, but at the same time creeped out by the fact that weird things are happening to them. They're hearing also noises in the forest. They're telling kind of ghost stories and creature stories around a campfire at night. So there's a mix of, are they scaring themselves? Is somebody reacting poorly to the fact that they're capitalizing in some way, shape, or form on these memorials? Or is there something supernatural also going on in here? I think it's pretty slow burn so far, but I am intrigued by it. It's very long chapters. This is a gifted galley from Gallery. It comes out on October 22nd, so a little bit before this vlog goes live, this will now be out. I did also just get the audiobook from Simon Audio, so I've been going back and forth between reading in print print and reading an audio, and I think the audio has been great as well, and it's been good to kind of keep myself flying through this really quickly. It's not short, it's like 470 pages, though it's not the biggest print or the densest book to get through, so I'm finding it a pretty quick read. So I'm gonna keep working on this one, and my goal this weekend is to prioritize several of my Spookopoly books so I can do some rolls, so hopefully I will be back very soon. And I think I need to play some fetch with Kylie because I'm personally ready for bed. She is most definitely not. So I need to tire her out a bit. So I will go do that and check in with you later. Welcome to Chaos Update. I know I'm looking rough. I'm feeling a little rough. Allergies have been kicking off. I have a feeling our Santa Ana winds are in town, which are my mortal enemy weather phenomenon, and it just means that my sinuses, I feel like someone has punched me in the face. And as far as I know, Kylie has not done so. So it's probably the winds. But I am now in the middle of not one, not two, not even three, but 4 Spookopathon books. So I figured I probably should do an update. And then my next update should include me actually having finished something, maybe, kinda, sorta. Because I'm not allowing myself to roll again until I've finished at least, I think, 2 books. So that's the goal. I do have to go out tonight. My mother's birthday dinner is this evening, and I think what I'm gonna do is ditch Kylie, rude I know, and do a little bit of shopping for myself. Because it's also my birthday weekend, technically. So, kind of thinking about going and buying some yarn at Joann's. And then I can do some crocheting along with my reading this weekend. And tomorrow is Sunday. I know Becca has sprints going on tomorrow, and then I might even do some late in the day. So, anyway, the reason I'm here is to have my coffee and update you on my Spookopoly reading and play fetch with Kylie, clearly. How much do we want to bet this coffee is going to wind up in my lap at some point? But anyway, I am now 2 parts deep into Parasite by Darcy Coates, and as I predicted, I'm having a fantastic time with this one. We are following so far 2 different stations on 2 different planets or moons or the like, and each one has a 3-person team. As the book opens, we're following Carly and Jen, and they are going out onto the planet's surface to kill some of the vegetation on the planet and put it into like a recycling type unit, and that's kind of their job. They're isolated. This is a multi-year stint. It's basically a punishment, and it's not a type of job that you get for being good. They're being punished for something or other, but things go wrong. Carly radios in that she's found some sort of new type of entity or plant or something, and it seems to be attacking her. Jen races over, finds her basically dead, and her helmet's been ripped off. They've been told that this planet's atmosphere is poisonous, and that is something that they can't survive. So she goes back. She and the person still in the station are very upset, and then Carly comes and knocks on the door. So things go from there. Then part 2 is basically its own separate novella, as I understand it, but essentially we're following the same type of issue. And then I think this is basically, I don't remember how many, 5 or 7 different kind of novellas that are all interlinked. I think there's something about space horror that really just hits differently, and I think it's the isolation, it's the fact that there's multiple things that could go wrong on top of the horror elements, just access to oxygen and atmosphere and just very alien nature of places where these are that call to me. This is definitely feeling like a 5-star prediction for me, and it still has that potential. It reads really quickly, even though it is over 400 pages, so I'm hopeful I can finish this weekend. I am also reading A Blizzard of Polar Bears by Alice Henderson, and I put it on audio this morning while I was still laying in bed. I was awake early, no good reason, and quickly made it to the halfway point. I'm enjoying it so far. We're following Alex Carter, who is the character we're following through this series. There's 3 books out currently. This is book 2. There's a 4th one due out in March. In each one, kind of, it's a different study she's doing, a different type of animal she's following. Obviously, in this one, it's polar bears. These are, I would say, very educational. You are getting kind of a lot of information about polar bears, about research, about those types of things, but I'm finding that really interesting, so I don't mind it. But I could see if you were picking these up purely for the thriller mystery type of book, some of that might be distracting. There was a little bit at the beginning that felt even repetitive to me. I started to wonder if I'd accidentally rewound, because we wind up following a polar bear and its two cubs that they are tranquilizing, tagging, studying, and releasing. And the same essential thing kind of happens again with another set, but beyond that, it hasn't been feeling too repetitive. Now that we're at the halfway point, we're really... Puppy, there's a coffee there. What are you doing, crazy? She's like, don't talk about other animals. I'm here. Now that we're at the halfway point, the action really is picking up. We started getting kind of hints of things to happen. She's obsessed with anything made of metal, and she's licking my scissors, which is not a good idea. Nobody. Oh, I did warn this was going to be a chaos update, right? We start getting hints earlier in the book that things are going wrong. There's a break-in. Somebody has stolen some of the samples they took. There's some weird stuff with the helicopter. The pilot quit, and things have been slowly ramping up. Now that we're at the halfway point, things really are kicking off. And apparently I need to be done with this update. Thanks for showing people your butt. Thank you. I'm sure they appreciate that. But I am really enjoying the book so far. I don't know that I'm feeling 5-star potential from it, but sorry, this is just amusing me. I am going to keep listening to that. I'm going to put my scissors to use so they stop getting licked, because the thing that Kylie's currently now sitting on and wrinkling is actually a new project I'm working on for some weekend reading challenges. So more on that to come, but it's a good kind of cutting things out, folding things up, putting things in a jar. Oh, you like jars too, huh? I can't see the camera at all now. Thank you. Project to sit here and do an audiobooks with. So I think I am going to listen to some more polar bears, and hopefully Kylie will let me use my scissors as something other than a treat to lick. Sorry for the chaos. Such is my life. It's what I get for trying to do an update seated on the floor, really. Be back later. Thank you, buddy. Very helpful. Okay, I have a few updates for you, and then it's time to roll. So, yesterday, while I was out and about running some errands, I finished up A Blizzard of Polar Bears, and in general, I like this one. I think I like the beginning more, and getting more of the science stuff at the beginning, oddly enough, than the action part at the end. I think the action was done well. I think it just got to a point where it felt a little bit repetitive, because she'd be running and surviving this horrible condition in the snow and the ice and risking freezing to death, and then she'd get safe. And then something else would happen, and she'd again be on the run, and so on and so forth, rinse, repeat. But I still really had a good time with it. I'm still definitely planning to pick up the next book in the series. The next one, which I think is A Ghost of Caribou, is already out, and I have plans to pick it up potentially next month. There is an installment of the Final Book support group next month from Steph at Steph Loves, so this is a potential series I'm working on with that. But I do like our main character. I like how invested they get, and in talking with some people about this book, I looked into the author a little bit, and she's got a lot of experience working in nature and preservation and a whole bunch of different things. Writing is just a new side gig, I guess, but it makes me feel like there is some legitimacy to the science and the research elements and the talk about preserving nature and the harm that humans do to nature and all of that in here. So overall, a good time. I'm giving this one a 4-star, maybe on the low end of 4, but still 4. And then last night, since in my errands yesterday, I picked up some new yarn. I was doing some crocheting and listening to audiobooks, so I also finished up Memorials. And this one I really enjoyed. I think it felt maybe a little longer than it needed to be, but I really liked that it had high stakes and that there was a present danger kind of looming over everything. It's pretty slow burn in a lot of ways, and then at the end it goes kind of bonkers. So you have to suspend some disbelief. There are some elements of humans behaving badly. There's some lore and superstitions and things that cross over what is human, what is supernatural. And I think the mixed media format really added a lot to the story, and the way it ends is very bittersweet in a lot of ways. So this was a good listen. This was a good read. I had a good time with this one. It wound up a 4-star as well. And then I'm flying through Parasite and still making my way through Lightbringer as well. It's definitely taking a little bit longer, but that's because it's just a bigger book with a lot going on in it. But that means I'm down to 2 books that are already in progress, so I'm going to go ahead and do 2 new rolls. Okay, TBR Vet was the last one, so let us roll. It rolled almost off screen, but that was a 3 and a 6, so 9. Which is Jason. I do need to look up what exactly that translates to. And then roll number 2 for today. Another 3 and another 6. 9 again. Which is a chance card. So, my first roll, I got Jason, and this one says, Escape Camp Crystal Lake Alive, read a book with 13 letters in the title. And this is where the difficulty came in, because 13 letters seems to be a very rare option. I found a book, going through my Libby holds that are coming up soon, and great, I found a book. Until I realized where it was. These stacks up here, which go way above where you can see, are actually 2 deep of special edition books. And the one that I needed was at the very bottom of one of the back stacks. So, had to complain about that a little bit. But the book that we're going to go with for 13 letters is The Luminaries. This is the really pretty, really blindingly shiny Illumicrate edition. This is by Susan Dennard, and this is an author that I am a little bit wary of, but also cautiously optimistic because this sounds really good. She is the author of the Witchland series, which I know a lot of people really love, but I didn't fall in love with the series. I'm therefore hoping for the best for this one, and it is super pretty. The sprayed edges there. The back is gorgeous. I'm hoping to love it because the edition is just really, really stunning. And that, and more shiny on the naked hardcover, and signature on there too. So this one says, Hemlock Falls isn't like other towns. You won't find it on a map, your phone won't work here, and the forest outside just might kill you. This one has me intrigued. I think it's going to be dark. I think it's got some horror elements, so it's good for spooky season, and I will let you know once I get going on it. And then the second space we landed on is, of course, a chance card. My game just really wants me to read all the spinner wheel picks. There are several on here at this point that I have already read, so if I wind up with one of those, I will just respin. So here we go. Did indeed read New Spring. I did indeed read Dead 11. Okay, we got The Ferryman, which is another chunky book. Apparently this is my month to read chunky horror. So let me grab it. I did actually look at this one for 13 letters, but it's 11 letters. Anyway, Justin Cronin is the author of The Passage, which I really enjoyed. They are bigger books. They are slower burn. I don't know. I just had a good time listening to them on audio. They were definitely commute books for me, as I recall. I've been interested to pick up his new one. That doesn't mean I actually remember anything about what this is about. This says it's a standalone novel about a group of survivors on a hidden island utopia where the truth isn't what it seems. So it has me intrigued. I will be checking this one out, and then I will provide you with some updates. It is now Monday morning, and I'm anticipating putting this vlog up on Saturday, which means I'm down to a time crunch, and I'm now realizing how mean my final rules were to give me a super huge book. But that's okay. I should have thought through things and maybe only done one more roll, but that's okay. I can handle this. I did, in fact, finish up Parasite last night, so making some progress. I really enjoyed this. I don't know what it is about space horror that really just works for me, but in this one we're on different stations, we're on ships, we're on different settings and different characters in each of the stories in here, but they're all linked, and I really like the way that she escalates the issue, the threat to humanity and all of that. It doesn't end with like a super clear resolution, everything solved, nice, neat little bow, but it does end in a way that felt satisfying. It felt like there's a direction the story is going in, and I was happy with it. I really liked how she got you to care about characters between sections. I liked that there were high stakes. You couldn't count on a character making it to the end of the story. I liked the threat that was there, and this was just a really good time. I wound up giving it a 4.5, but I keep thinking about it and the way it worked and the format and the characters and the story, but I'm leaning towards a 5, I think, for this one, so I would recommend it to anyone looking for something a little bit different from Darcy Coates. And then I did also start The Ferryman yesterday, and I'm having a pretty good time with it. It is big, and it is a little bit on the slow side. It reminds me a little bit of The Last Murder at the End of the World by Stuart Turton, and that is one that I really enjoyed. That was potentially a 5-star read. I'm not remembering 100%, but really enjoyed book. This one I'm enjoying, not necessarily as much. It's not necessarily grabbing me as much, but it has a very similar setup. We're on an island. We don't know really what's going on outside of this protected sphere of this island. Well, we really don't know what entirely is going on this island either. Children show up on this island as children, not as babies. They come from the nursery, which is another island, and we see that in the very kind of opening. We see our main character Proctor showing up as a child and showing up to join his guardians, and they're guardians slash parents. Some are better than others, of course, and when someone's health is deteriorating, when they're getting too old to kind of be useful to the society, they are retired. And our main character Proctor is a ferryman, which means that he takes the retiring people to the ferry, and the idea is that they are wiped out, reborn, and then eventually will make their way back to the island. It's a very interesting system. I'm finding the world building of this really intriguing. Of course, with any utopia story, you very early on are seeing the fact that things aren't as clear and happy-go-lucky as one might want the general populace to think. So it's interesting the little hints we're getting early on about what's going on behind the scenes and the way the society is being controlled, and the way our main character is in a position of power essentially as a ferryman, but also in the dark about so many things. So it has me very intrigued. It's a really easy audiobook to listen to and to multitask, so I've been working on some crochet along with this. I started last night and I'm at, I think, 46% as of this morning, so I'm hoping I can finish this one up today. It feels like it's the type of book I can hopefully multitask to when I get to some of my really boring work today at work, and we'll see. This one will still take a little bit longer because, again, it's huge. But I have this. I have about 70% left in Lightbringer, and I have all of the Luminaries. So, need to get those done. I have no plans for today other than, of course, I have to be at work. I need to get some editing done because my video for Wednesday is not done either. But aside from that, I'm hoping I can come home tonight, do some crocheting, hang out with Kylie, and listen to some audiobooks. So, that's my goal, and I will check you later. It's now Wednesday morning, and I have a couple of updates for you. I did yesterday have a pretty good reading day and finished up The Ferryman. And unfortunately, the intrigue that I was feeling at the beginning of this book really started to dip by the midway point, and by the end, I was interested enough to keep going, but not really loving my time with it. This is one of those books where the author kind of pulls the rug out from under the reader's feet and gives a twist that completely resets what we know about the characters, what we know about the setting, and all of that. And I can enjoy that type of thing when it's really well done, and I'm not saying it's badly done in here, it's just done so often in here almost that I couldn't quite catch up and catch my breath. I feel like there were questions that I have that we didn't get fully fully fleshed out answers because things kept changing so rapidly. And by the end, I kind of lost my investment with it as a result. I think the main character was well done, and kind of the way he went through the entire story as a main character. We're also getting a different POV, which also kind of flows through most of the story as well. And in the end, I'm not super sure how much I feel like we got resolution to the extent that I wanted it. And I think there's some heavy topics in here, grief and loss, which were pretty well done, but at the same time could have used a little more depth and emotion maybe to it as well. So in the end, this is a 3-star read. It felt a little bit long. It didn't quite live up to what I was hoping for at the beginning, but still, I didn't want to put it down at any point. And then I also made a good start on the Luminaries yesterday and made it to about halfway point pretty quickly. It is fairly short. It's feeling, not in a bad way, but feeling pretty typical kind of YA story setup. Winnie is turning 16 as this book opens, and 16 is the year where you have your one opportunity to test to become a luminary, and she wants this more than anything. And in particular, she wants this because her family has been shunned by their society because her father was revealed to be a witch and a traitor, and this means the entire family is basically banished. They're not allowed to train and participate in their luminary type events and all of that. She really wants to be a luminary. She wants to go in for this testing, and she puts her smarts to use, and she figures out that she actually has this ability even while her family is on the outs with this society. And she's going in with a disadvantage because she hasn't been allowed to train for it. She hasn't had the full benefits of everything else. She's just been doing everything on her own, which has gotten her pretty far, but she needs to improve if she's ever going to pass all these tests. So she's enlisted her former best friend Jay. She feels like maybe he is a good resource. While everyone else laughs at her, he at least kind of holds back even if he doesn't defend her. So there is potential there. So I'm having a good time with it. I think it's a lot of fun, but I will let you know how it's going when I get further along. I am back with you for a final update, finally, and that's because I have finished both of my remaining books. This one was a fantastic time. I had a lot of fun going through it with these characters. The ups, the downs, the chaos, the brutality, the carnage, everything. I don't want to say too much about it because, again, this is so far into the series. I feel like everything is a spoiler, except I am glad that I took my time with this one. Spent a little bit of time in it each day. The audiobook was, again, fantastic. There was one particular voice that kept throwing me every time the narrator did it, but other than that, I had a fantastic time with the audio for this, and I can't believe I'm at the point, finally, where I'm now having to wait for another book to come out. And then I also wrapped up the Luminaries, and this one I had a really good time with. I don't know that it necessarily surprised me. I saw someone point out the fact that basically this book does exactly everything the synopsis says and doesn't really go beyond that, and that's pretty accurate, but it's also the first book in a trilogy, so it is sort of kind of setting up for more, I think. I really like the world building in here. I like the fact that it was dark. They are starting the book cleaning up corpses, and you've got monsters, and you've got these trials which involve going up against these monsters to some extent, and our main character Winnie is having to kind of stand up for herself throughout, but also she's seen things that no one else believes, and she's having to fight against that disbelief as well. I think I suspected at the very beginning that the relationship between her and her former best friend Jay would turn into a very fast kind of typical YA romance, and I think there are some of those elements throughout. We've got a couple of girls in here who are very giggly about him, but it didn't 100% rush in, which I appreciated as well. And I do think I will pick up books 2 and 3 since I do have those on audio. I think they will be a fun additional listen. But with that, I did finish my last book for this vlog, and though I probably will do a couple more rolls for myself before the end of the month, I did need to get this vlog out, so those will not be in there. But I will be reading on, most likely, and probably sharing sharing a few rolls maybe on my Bookstagram stories. I had an absolutely fantastic time with this readathon. I always do when Bookopoly and Spookopoly are involved. So thank you so much to Becca for bringing us this again this year. Let me know in the comments below, have you been participating in Spookopoly-thon? What's been your favorite roll or your favorite read? Have you read any of the books that I read for this vlog? Are any of them on your TBR? Let me know all the things below. And if you've made it this far and you don't have anything to comment, give me a dice emoji. I would surely appreciate it if you could hit that like button below if you enjoyed this vlog, and subscribe if you're interested in more of my readathon participation, more of my book thoughts, and more Kylie chaos. But for now, I will leave you here and see you real soon in a new video.